Avec moi, à l'hôtel.
J'ai longtemps hésité à vous faire part de ce que je vais vous dire, mais là, il n'est plus possible de me taire.
Welcome, as I was saying, to the 71st edition of the San Sebastian Film Festival. We have with us today of the team of En Silence film that competes in the official selection. And I'm going to now introduce them. Excuse me for my French pronunciation. We have producers Anton, STETTNER, and EVA KUPERMAN. We have the actress Emmanuelle DEVOS. We have the director JOACHIM LAFOSSE, actor Matthìeu GALLOUX, and actress JEANNE CHERHAL. And to start, I would like to ask a question, because I understand that despite the obvious differences that may exist, and the original idea of the film starts from the real case that took place in Belgium. And I would like to know, especially for Joachim Lafosse, what the inspiration and the writing process, to what extent the reality determined the film, the approach of the film, as well as the current conversations vis-a-vis the concept of silence and the victims may have been present within the film as well.
Je réponds en français. Je peux répondre en français?
Si.
Peut-être la première chose, c'est que un fait divers, une affaire.
I would like to commence, perhaps, by saying that it is a case followed by the press, in any case, but doesn't create a film in itself. Undoubtedly, my work and the work of the actors and actresses, we have to create these characters. Initially, what I do was to listen to the different facts that took place. This story, in this case, I was wondering myself, why did it affect me so much? And at a given moment, I realized that it is a possibility, and it gives me the opportunity of telling the poison behind this crime, and everything which accompanies this poison, which is shame and the disastrous consequences of that shame. Obviously, I like the dramatic irony, but the idea is how do you make it so far? How do we get there? That suspense to see what's going to happen. Well, these are tools that we use in cinema, obviously, but the core base, the truth is, how do we make it this far? How do we get to that point? Well, let's go in depth into that psychosis in the case and the suffering in the case of the son, that almost drowning feeling that Astrid feels as well. I'm not capable of writing a script or a film if I don't feel that I have to defend something. Then the truth is, in this case, I felt that I had to defend Astrid as well as Raphael. I hope that my film is not a moral film, but I do have my own morals. I want to take the audience to not judge what they experience when they see the film, but on the other hand, the character of Damien Hotel, of the lawyer, we have to follow him. We've got to take him into a process, and that follows part of my own moral. Hi, good morning. I would like to ask you about how you prepared the script. How was the work that you carried out not to excessively judge or to not judge at all? Quite simply, to judge the characters, where there was a lot of discussion that we were falling into a bit of sensationalism that we didn't want to portray or show. How was it to achieve that balance in the script, and then also ask about that final take of Emmanuelle, how you work on that final take of Emmanuelle, so we as the audience and spectators think of one thing or the other vis-à-vis her silence. Thank you.
Alors, il y a, comme cinéaste, il y a une chose qu'on oublie.
As a director,
C'est qu'en fait, il y a deux auteurs à un film.
There's something that we should say. There are two. We've got the director, but we've also got the audience, and each audience is unique. And my work and the work when I write the script, along with the other screenplay writers, it consists in managing to write a type of a place where we can also create the film from the point of view of the spectators, and we can live with Emmanuelle, this story with Emmanuelle. Vis-à-vis silence, I would say that when I wrote the script, there are very few words, but the writing has to do with breathing, where it has to deal with the image, with gestures, with allowing to see certain things, without allowing you to see what the character lives through the actress in this case. We undoubtedly have a script, but when we shoot the film, specifically in the case of this film, I was very glad to see I was able to talk with Emmanuelle throughout the process, specifically of her character, because it's the most complex of all the characters. So therefore, together, we've had to fine-tune the character because the lawyer doesn't change too much. He doesn't question himself. That's the perverse logic that exists, but Emmanuelle is different. Emmanuelle is a heroine, she's in that sense, because she changes her position. And MatthIeu as well, Raphael, for example, his character goes through an evolution from being passive all the way through to being violent. And that's written also during the shoot of the film, during the 10 days through which, or during which, better said, we see the script, we went over the script, we portrayed it during the shooting of the film. And this method of work, I used it in Después de Nosotros. That is, when we talk about denial, like here, how do you tell that story about denial? You need hours of discussion and to reflecting upon this. I remember the conversations with Emmanuelle. They're complex. We have to show a certain empathy, and it seems to me that it's inadequate to not achieve that empathy. They say, I want to achieve that empathy towards a person who's suffering in this case, who's drowning for so many years, who's keeping something inside, something so important, and she can, at the end of the day, she can hardly breathe. And I think that's the work of the actors, precisely. And I would also add, remember the first scene that opens the film, I think that the way in which Jeanne's character forms part of the police team, she supports Emmanuelle to see what she's hiding. At the beginning of the film, she's hiding the story, and we start to discover the story throughout, or the plot, or throughout the film. Here, at this moment, in this scene, nothing can be dissonant. I want to take advantage that you talk about the importance of the acting and how they will confront their characters, because it's a film with characters which are absolutely very complex. And what I understand, there was a very significant time of rehearsals to achieve that. I would like to hear the actors now, Emmanuelle, MatthIeu, and Jeanne, as regards how they confronted or how they approached their characters.
Eh bien, ça passe, comme vient de le dire Joachim, par des discussions et puis des jours de répétition.
Joachim has just said there was quite a lot of discussion, 10 days of rehearsals. That's quite strange in a film, to have the possibility of going right through the story from the beginning to the end at the end of the day.
Un film comme
And
ça, c'est effectivement très nécessaire.
with all
Plus
the,
Mathieu,
well, all of the
film,
locations where
c'était bien de-
the story takes place, and
Voilà,
it's the
de-
first
de
story
appréhender
of,
un peu
well, I
le
think
tournage
Mathieu, it's his first time,
puis de se
and I think
connaître.
I've helped this methodology, helped this method in order to see
Comment-
how we
c'est-
improved
c'est des rôles comme
and
ça,
how we got to,
c'est à la fois
well,
beaucoup de
for the shoot, how we got to
préparation et
know each
puis
other better.
de la
These
surprise
roles
au moment du tournage.
require a lot of preparation,
On a parlé
and
avant,
then
plus c'est
also to
facile de
let
lâcher
yourself
prise
go when you shoot
et de laisser
and you
faire
act.
les choses un peu,
And the more we can let ourselves go and allow things to happen and to feel them and to let yourself go sensorially, that is to say, the more we achieve this, well, the camera
en plus pour
is going to capture all of that.
ce genre de rôle,
So,
c'est pas facile, il faut à la fois être
These types
engagé,
of
puis
roles are
en même
not
temps
easy
sécurisé par le
because
travail. Et c'est un film
we have to
qui
feel
traverse
ourselves
l'apnée
very
pratiquement avec tout le temps et
sure
tous
of
les
what
jours.
we do,
À
and
la
this
fois
is the
avec
work.
grande joie
Then
de
I was
travailler,
almost
le
every day I
travail
was,
était extrêmement
it was
intéressant.
like not breathing, but the work became something very interesting with Joachim and his team. I felt very passionate about what I've done, and also the role I had to play made me, it was a lot of weight on my chest almost, and so the contrast was quite noticeable. Not the joy of going to work, but then it's not fun. Anyway, it's not joy because it's not a joyful character. There was a counterweight there, but the work, as I say, is very, very interesting.
Pour ma part, c'était ma première expérience. Je sais pas
It's
vraiment
my
comparer,
first experience in my case, so therefore I can't compare it
mais,
to other films.
dans ce rôle, ce qui a joué, c'était
But I would
de-
say that my role has been very important. Spontaneity was very important. Let's say the emotions of the character. We must understand how how this person can feel, and what I've tried to do is to portray that my way. I think that I have been well directed by Joachim, and the team has worked very, very well. And this acts as a counterpoint because the plot of the film is complex, it's tough, it's hard. So therefore, the experience
un peu aller
has been quite incredible.
sans trop me poser de questions. Et
But I didn't ask myself too many things on myself.
Juste une petite chose, c'est un personnage. Le
I
personnage,
would also like to add that
c'est quelqu'un qui est parlé par les autres.
Raphael, his character,
Il a pas
is
son
someone
opinion,
who
donc finalement, évidemment,
talks through other people. He doesn't have his own opinion, and obviously that explodes in the end.
acteur qui n'a pas fait de
I must say that for an actor
acteur de tous les films.
has not done any previous film, it's difficult, and I don't like to direct
Mais en l'occurrence,
actors. I don't like that word. I don't like that term. And Mathieu
jeune homme formidable, plein de
is a young man who's formidable, full of life, the
C'est
truth
vraiment
be
quelqu'un
said.
qui s'est laissé diriger,
He's someone
vraiment.
who has let himself be directed
Pas du tout de sa nature.
and has composed something that doesn't form
J'ai trouvé très
part of his nature at all. And I've been very impressed with his work.
Première collaboration.
And Jeanne,
Oui, bah,
first collaboration
vous
with
avez raison,
Jeanne.
c'est aussi mon-
Yes, our first time
comme Mathieu,
working together, and also
moi, je
my
suis
first
musicienne.
experience in film. Just like Mathieu, I'm a musician,
J'étais,
I'm a singer,
assez surprise que Joachim pense à moi parce qu'a priori.
and I was surprised that Joachim thought of me because it's a role as a police woman, and I thought that very far away from who I am as a person. And the truth is, as I like his work very much, I put my trust in him.
Habillé par lui, quoi.
I really felt like let myself be directed and guided
C'est
by
vrai que
him.
le mot, un petit peu comme le mot d'ordre, enfin l'espèce d'étoile qu'il y avait comme mot, c'était le mot empathie dont il a parlé tout à l'heure.
I think the term empathy
À cette commissaire.
has been something which was quite present in my role or character as a police commissioner. When one thinks about the police, not always does one think about empathy or understanding or listening even.
C'est très actuel en fait.
But it's something which is quite, well, quite current, the truth be said. We can imagine that the police can change their point of view or they can change their attitude. The scenes with Emmanuelle the scenes
Moi, je me suis vraiment
with the
laissée,
door closed between the two of them,
emporter,
face to face,
dirigée
has
par
enabled me
le
to
grand
allow
talent et la
me
sensibilité
to
d'Emmanuel.
be
Enfin,
directed by the great talent
j'avais
and
l'impression, enfin,
sensitivity of
de
Emmanuelle.
rien faire.
I had the impression that I didn't have to do too much in front of her.
Scénario, j'étais complètement conquise
Reading
par
the
l'histoire,
script,
très 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 touchée.
I was conquered, shall we say, by the story. It really hit me very well the way the script was written, and undoubtedly I'm very happy that in my first experience in film was this role.
Je pense que c'est juste une petite chose par rapport au
Yes, just one point that I would like to add vis-a-vis
et pour la réalisation. Quand j'ai au premier
what's taken me to write this script and to make the film. In the first rehearsals,
empathie, sans être dans un cliché,
and see how this role is played with empathy without
en
judging,
accueillant le,
and how she, when she develops
sa lance,
her
sa- moi,
the
sa
portrayal
lance,
of Astrid makes Astrid talk. That was a moment for me, which was, the truth be said,
l'aspect dévastateur
hit me
de-
quite hard. It moved me, and it sure me see the devastating aspect of shame and guiltiness. And Astrid is not
comme ce-
guilty. She's a victim, in my opinion, just like her brother.
prenait-
If tomorrow, for example, I'm told that my small brother
je ne
or
suis pas
young
sûr
brother,
tout de suite trouver la bonne
what's happened is what happened to Astrid's brother. I'm not too sure of how I'm going to react. I'm not going to probably react very well, and it's going to be too late because guiltiness, when it comes along, is very devastating. We've got to be very courageous and very brave
contexte familial.
in order to achieve and to allow
Mais
a climate
il me semble
or a family environment to explode where there is a lot of pressure. It's very contaminated.
vraiment une époque formidable.
I think we are living in a formidable period. I'm convinced that there are going to be more works which deal with the issue of shame. We have to encourage people to understand the importance of listening more than talking. We have to we have to listen quite often, and we have to measure
On n'évite pas la honte quand on parle.
things a lot when we talk.
C'est pour ça qu'on a- c'est autour de ça
We don't have to avoid shame. We have to work
pendant des
this issue quite a lot, I believe.
à l'écriture, en lecture avec les producteurs, en rendez-vous.
During the writing of the script, during the reading, also the work with the producers, all of this has been quite present. All of that work upon the shame, obviously with the actors as well. Hi, good morning. What drew my attention is the relationship between the mother and the son throughout the film. And I'd like to know whether the fact that the son is adopted is a decision that you had from the outset, or when you wrote the script, or is that subsequent? And also would like to know whether the choice of Daniel and Emmanuelle as the main characters was there from the outset, or was that subsequent, whether you wrote thinking about them or not?
En fait, Emmanuel, oui, j'ai
Well,
vraiment toujours pensé, et c'est pas toujours le cas.
I saw Emmanuelle in the role. That doesn't always happen, but when I started to write, that was the case. I thought that Emmanuelle would be fantastic portraying this role. I gave her a first version of the script, and something happened which was, at the end of the day,
J'ai rendu compte que j'avais
made me feel much more relaxed. I must recognize this.
d'engager et de critique. C'est
And
que
I realized
la première version, elle a refusé de faire le film. Et puis je suis
that
retourné en écriture.
initially she didn't want to do the film, and
Elle,
when I finished the script,
et donc je suis retourné travailler. Et je
I realized that why was she saying no,
ah, bon,
and
alors,
I think that 6 months later, a year later,
moi, ça
well, not so
en
long,
tout cas,
perhaps 4
je
months
suis retourné au
later,
travail, et puis je lui ai refait lire
I
la
went
nouvelle, enfin,
to
fait lire la
work
version.
and I sent her the new version of the script, and that's where we met and we decided to work together.
Oui, alors, l'adoption est
Yes, and the adoption, yes, what you were talking about, the son being adopted. Well,
j'ai fait un film
it is always something quite complicated.
Chevalier Blanche, c'est
I made a film which was here in the first San Sebastian Film Festival, The White
il me
Knights.
semble que dans cette histoire-là,
And it seems to me that in this story,
à faire de Raphaël un enfant adopté. Aussi, dans un
Raphael should be an adopted son. It was quite logical because it's an issue of violence for him, violence of his identification of himself. That's my hypothesis, at least. But I think that for an adopted son, it's even more violent, all of this, because we're trying to tell a young person everything that's happening, which is really tough. And the question that I ask and that we've asked ourselves during the shoot is how can we go that far that where Raphael goes in and moves into action. He goes from a certain passiveness into a certain action, and we need something for this. Things have to happen, and this is also that we want to portray in the film. This is one of the hypotheses that it seemed to us. And as regards Daniel Auteuil and his character, he's a savior. And it talks about that desire that exists, or that it doesn't exist between Daniel and Emmanuel, between the lawyer and his wife. And through the adoption, we're also talking about desire, sexuality. How can we desire a man knowing what she knows? It seems to me quite complicated. And in turn, bourgeoisie, for example, that economic comfort situation she lives in could be a way of not looking face to face towards that desire or absence of desire. And that's where the decision of the adoption arises. But once again, it's very difficult for me to talk about my own film, and I'm like a spectator of my own film. I'm giving you an opinion which is at the same time as a hypothesis. Was there another question or not? No. Is that right?
Bonjour, félicitations pour tout le monde.
Good morning. Congratulations to all of you. I'm going to speak in Spanish now. The silence in any case is shared. It's not only is Astrid the main, but Caroline as well, the daughter, and even the victim, the brother. So therefore, it's true, the film is asking the questions to the spectator, and it allows the spectator to reconstruct. The ending is open. It's great, this paradox that the adopted son is not only because of his attempted murder he's taken in, arrested, but for seeing pages, websites of this type. The question I have is that the reflection is shame and the comfort she has, why she's maintained this silence. But what occurs to me additionally is it possible is redemption possible? Let's say the character of the lawyer has tried to go through therapy to get out of that situation, and the truth is he continues to get into those websites, but he doesn't harm anyone. He's got an adolescent son who he doesn't treat badly, and even in his profession he is pursuing those people that have gone beyond him at the same level. Was that the idea in the script, to leave open for the spectator this issue to what's possible? Is redemption possible? And social prejudices don't prevent this, despite the fact there's support from the environment. This question is very important.
Cet homme, il pense qu'il va se laver.
This man believes
en allant,
that he's going to heal himself,
des gens qui sont victimes de ce qu'il a lui-même,
saving and helping people who are victims of the crime that he himself has committed.
C'est pas comme ça qu'on se soigne.
But we can't heal ourselves like that. I don't desire any victim to find themselves with someone who follows this logic. This is
Par contre, comme
this
cinéaste,
is
comme auteur,
perversion in
je peux tout à
itself.
fait
And
m'expliquer
as a
cette
director, as an author, I can explain that logic,
Oui, c'est
I
une
can
logique
understand
défensive,
it.
c'est la pire.
And it's
C'est la plus
a
destructrice.
defensive logic, and it's the most destructive of all.
De santé mentale,
All of the mental health specialists and those that protect childhood
on met
in
pas
or
un-
young
je sais pas comment
people
dire, on met
are going
pas
to say,
quelqu'un qui est un criminel sexuel dans une crèche.
let's not put a sexual criminal to work in a creche,
Mais
for
cette idée,
example.
parce que
Is
le
that
terme
right?
que vous employez, c'est rédemption.
The
Je
term
pense que cet homme
used in
est
the
dans
question
cette
is
culture-là.
redemption, and I believe
Et que
this
c'est
man
justement
has that culture.
cette culture-là qui fabrique,
And precisely this culture, this logic, he manufactures and he creates. That's what creates the poison that I was referring to. Because in this culture, all of this doesn't stop it.
de faire un pas de
Because
côté.
this man doesn't have the clearness to take a step to one side and say, well, okay, I'm sick.
Parce que je suis malade, je ne vais surtout pas aller.
And as I'm sick, undoubtedly, I'm not going to follow go down these lines.
Et la culture
But
dont vous parlez, celle de la rédemption,
that
elle
culture
invite
of
à se
redemption
laver de cette manière-là. Et à
means
travers
that
le
this
film,
man
ce que j'ai,
wants
moi,
to
essayé de
wash
montrer,
his
c'est à quel
or
point
heal
c'est
himself
dévastateur,
this way and wash his image. But in the film, I wanted to show that this culture is devastating. Currently, what we do is to protect people, get them further away, or get them away from what's happening. And the population is fascinated by this man and by this pose, heroic pose as a savior, which he tries to portray. And that logic, this neurotic logic, which we are calmed with a sort of simplistic proposal, and this means that we can understand this. I'm under the impression that when we confront or when we face this crime, which is shown in the film, we also come to the issue of power and how power is created and how we feel fascinated by power. A man who takes a position as a hero is something that we accept, that perhaps the way he takes that hero is takes a position. It's a mask. Be very careful with mediation and mask. And I'm saying this in front of, in a press conference in front of a microphone. It's easy to show oneself that way, but be careful. This is what I'm saying. 25 years ago, in Belgium, thousands of people came out into the streets to say, we don't want wolves in the forest. That was the slogan they used. And 25 years later, after this Belgian case, now we're addressing, am I a wolf in my home? Is there a wolf in my home or a she-wolf?
Mais ça part, je pense que ça, quelque part, ça part du traumatisme de l'affaire du Trouvant, en tout cas en Belgique.
I think that the case of Troub 25 years ago in Belgium made us to reflect very deeply upon this question. And the film sort of fits into this process that has been lived through. Hi, good morning. I would like to ask you, you're talking about shame, power, and many things, but I'd like to ask you quite directly, aren't you forgetting the word accomplice?
Ah ben, tu veux y aller sur le terme complice? Mais alors, attends, je vais y aller. Il n'y a pas eu une journée, c'est-à-dire...
There's not a day, well, let me start again.
C'était le pari.
That is our commitment there. How to say this? Let's say silence is questioned through trauma, the absence of trust in themselves, the absence of the courage of seeing the truth. There's not a day in the shoot of the film in which we've not asked ourselves, how
combien
to
en fait, elle est
allow the audience to
surtout
observe
atteinte. Elle est surtout traumatisée, mais elle n'est pas complice.
how this
Pourtant, elle est
woman
silencieuse.
is
Je pense que ça, c'est
traumatized.
une dimension, je me répète,
And
si
she's
on
not an
encourage
accomplice,
les gens à
but
parler,
she's silent.
il faut
And
aussi
so therefore we have to
accepter et
encourage
entendre
people
parfois,
to
on n'arrive
talk.
pas à parler. Mais si quand on n'arrive
But
pas à
there are
parler,
sometimes
on
that
vient
we
traiter de
are
complice la
unable to
tristesse,
talk.
on va pas s'en sortir. C'est pas le
But
bon
if we
chemin.
try, we deal with people that are accomplices, the people that can't
Je-
talk
je
or are
répète parce
silent.
que
We're not going to get
j'ai-
out of
j'ai-
this
j'ai-
loop, are we?
Moi aussi, j'ai des silences. J'ai fait un
I
film qui s'appelle
also
Elle
have
est
my
vie,
silences.
très autobiographique, mais à
In my
suite de la
film,
sortie de ce film, j'ai observé
LF
et
Live, for example, which is very autobiographical, I also observed my own silence. And I see there is silence around me. There are people that don't dare to talk about the film.
je suis pas
And
différent,
to a certain way, either can I. I'm not different to others. That silence, that shame
mais je pense qu'il faut être plus subtil
is tough. It's hard, but we have to be much more subtle, I believe.
voir dans le silence.
Not to see things white or black, and to see complicity in silence. I think it's much more complex than all of this. Yes, it's very complicated because the couple that Daniel and I form, well, it's a couple in which there was love. The original sin took place many years ago, and she minimizes it.
Malheureusement, c'est facile de minimiser.
Unfortunately.
Pour continuer à aimer quelqu'un. Et après, ça s'enquiste et ça devient.
And that way, by her minimizing things, she manages to continue to love this man, but she can't take that weight off her shoulders. And Astrid can't shut up anymore. She can't be quiet. She starts to get to a situation of almost a boiling point. She said, "Don't even touch the computer." The problem isn't the computer. It's not the computer or keyboard. She avoids so many things that she arrives to that point. And that's quite human. And we see it currently. There are a lot of children who talk about their cases 25 years later. Yeah, I don't think we should talk about being an accomplice. She's the victim of the poison of the crime. She's not the criminal. We can't say that the woman is an accomplice. She's not committed any crime.
Il existe des situations dans la société où il y a de la
There are situations in society where being an accomplice occurs, where there are criminals, people who protect each other, and they benefit from that silence. But such is not the case in the film. I don't believe so. Yeah, my question was for Ms. Devos, and I think you've answered it, Devos. Where it was easy for you to maintain that distance, to not judge, to not consider yourself an accomplice, because that silence is helping, obviously, to hide a crime.
Mais vraiment de l'intérieur, moi j'avais pas du tout l'impression de.
Well, the truth is that I didn't have the impression from inside, I don't know how to say this. I think that the people that are in this situation, and I've seen many documentaries of women this way, in this situation, that who don't say anything, and there are many, and I see that they enter into denial. All psychologists say it. It's neither easy nor is it difficult. It's work that one has to do. I've been able to physically feel what silence generates in a person, and it's really astonishing. That is, say, we need a violent shock to leave that situation. From that silence, obviously, and sorry to be about redundant with the word, it's not easy at all. And I would add, and if you'll allow me to add, it's much more complex than silence, because everyone talks in the house, but silence is outwards. At home, The home is like outside the law, so to
Donc,
speak.
on se parle entre nous de ce qui s'est passé.
Between them, they do speak about what has occurred, but they don't talk about that outside. That's a third person from people outside don't know, and that's where the silence occurs. It doesn't happen within the house. Everyone knows what's going on, in fact, and they talk about it
Mais de
between
là,
each other.
enfin, chacun est l'auteur de son propre film.
But
Et
everyone is the author of their own film, so to speak. So therefore, I don't believe that she helps the criminal. I think she does what she can. I truly believe that. I'm interested also, especially bearing in mind that we're talking about silence, to listen to the voice of both producers to see how they confronted this issue when all of a sudden you saw a film which was so complex at many different levels. How did you decide to approach producing it? I'm talking to Anton and Eva here. What's their point of view there?
Nous sortions de l'expérience des Intranquilles avec Joachim.
We come from the experience
Il l'avait déjà travaillé avant.
of Un Amor Tranquilo by Joachim. He had worked upon this before writing that story. We knew the script, but the production of Un Amor Tranquilo was done at that time, and we talked a lot with Joachim. We wanted for him to be able to defend this female character. We wanted him to feel that the drowning this woman, basically situation she goes through. The choice of the cast was very important, and then the rehearsals. We have seen that it was possible, and it was something very powerful. There is something very interesting that Anton and Eva told me, and they told me, perhaps we're not going to do this script first, let's do another script first, and then, I thought it was quite correct. I think they got it right. I felt very much like making this film, but it wasn't the first ideal film. We are young producers, and the truth is we didn't have sufficient power to support a film that would deal this powerful issue, and that's why we did Un Amor Tranquilo beforehand, and I think that was great. It is true that this issue is quite a complex issue. Today's questions demonstrate this. It's not a film that can be carried out by any director that easily. I think that Joachim has been able to, and undoubtedly the actors and the actresses have been able to reflect that complexity of each of the characters. That complexity has a lot of nuances, and that's what interested us so much, to be able to offer the audience the best possible film at the end of the day. That was our wish. It's a teamwork. We have to finish here, unfortunately. It's been a pleasure to listen to you. A big round of applause for them. Thank you.